Jasmine Williams stood tall in her designer suit, palms stinging after slapping billionaire CEO Thomas Blackwood across his stunned face. The private jet cabin fell silent. "You'll regret this," he whispered, blood trickling from his lip. She didn't know her entire empire would crumble by sunrise. Before we dive into this shocking story of power, prejudice, and payback, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed someone stand up to injustice, and subscribe to catch more incredible true stories of resilience against all odds. Now, let's rewind to see how Jasmine Williams found herself in this life-changing confrontation. Jasmine Williams hadn't always owned a private jet. Growing up in South Chicago's roughest neighborhood, luxury had been a distant dream glimpsed only through cracked windows of opportunity. Raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs, Jasmine learned early that black women had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. "Education is your ticket out," her mother would say, pressing crumpled dollars into Jasmine's palm for SAT prep books while skipping meals herself. That sacrifice paid off. Jasmine graduated top of her class at MIT, declined lucrative offers from Silicon Valley giants, and instead launched Horizon Solutions from her tiny apartment. Her vision, democratizing high-level security technology typically reserved for the wealthy elite. Her revolutionary AI security system could protect homes, businesses, and individuals at a fraction of current market costs. 7 years of 80-hour weeks, ramen dinners, and rejected investor pitches had transformed Horizon Solutions into a $200 million company with offices in 3 cities. At 35, Jasmine had become what business magazines called a rare success story in tech. Their coded language for acknowledging a black woman had somehow penetrated the white male fortress of technology entrepreneurship. Malik Johnson, her best friend since college and now COO, had been there from day one. Together they'd weathered the subtle and not-so-subtle racism of the tech world, investors who spoke only to Malik during pitches despite Jasmine being CEO, security guards following her through her own office building, competitors spreading rumors that she was merely a diversity front for white investors. "We've almost reached escape velocity," Malik told her the morning Thomas Blackwood's office first called. "Blackwood Industries wants to discuss a partnership. This could take us global." Jasmine knew Blackwood's reputation, 60-year-old white billionaire, old money mixed with new technology, connections throughout government and industry. His company, valued at $30 billion, could indeed propel Horizon to international status overnight. Their first meetings had gone surprisingly well. Blackwood, with his silver hair and tailored suits, treated her with apparent respect, though she noticed how his eyes lingered a second too long on her body, how he seemed surprised when she understood complex technical details, how he frequently interrupted her mid-sentence. "Something feels off," she confided to Malik after their 3rd meeting. "He keeps saying, 'your people,' when discussing market demographics." Malik's expression darkened. "I've heard rumors about Blackwood. They say he has a pattern of approaching minority-owned businesses, especially successful black entrepreneurs. He dangles partnership opportunities, then finds ways to acquire their technology while discarding the founders." "That's just rumor," Jasmine countered, though unease crept up her spine. "Just be careful," Malik warned. "We've worked too hard to be another trophy on his wall." Despite these concerns, the potential reward seemed worth the risk. A partnership with Blackwood Industries would mean Horizon security systems in millions of homes worldwide, potentially saving countless lives in vulnerable communities. The meeting on Jasmine's private jet, purchased only months earlier as both business tool and personal victory symbol, was scheduled to finalize partnership details while flying to a major tech conference in San Francisco. Blackwood had asked to review the contract privately before their legal teams met. Jasmine arrived early, settling into her custom leather seat as California's coastline glittered below. When Blackwood boarded, he immediately complained about the jet's size compared to his own fleet. "Quite cozy for a startup," he remarked, emphasizing the last word dismissively. As they reviewed contract terms, Jasmine grew increasingly concerned. The revised document granted Blackwood's company unprecedented access to Horizon's proprietary algorithms, the heart of their innovation. These terms are different from what we discussed, she noted, highlighting a particularly troubling clause. Blackwood waved dismissively. Standard legal language. Nothing to worry your pretty head about. I'd like our legal team to review these changes before proceeding, Jasmine insisted, closing the folder. That's when Blackwood's demeanor transformed. His smile vanished, replaced by a cold stare she recognized from countless confrontations with men unaccustomed to hearing no from women, especially black women. Listen, he said, leaning forward, let's not pretend you've gotten this far on your own merit. We both know what's happening with all these diversity initiatives. I'm offering you a lifeline before this bubble bursts. Jasmine sat perfectly still, her face a practiced mask. Excuse me. Your technology has potential, I'll give you that. But you need someone like me, someone with real experience, to guide it properly. He smiled thinly. My board already thinks I'm crazy for partnering with, well, you know. As the jet soared at 30,000 feet, Jasmine felt something shift inside her. Years of swallowed insults, of smiling through microaggressions, of explaining her existence in spaces designed to exclude her, crystallized into this moment. She discovered another document in the folder, a memo outlining Blackwood's real intentions, acquiring Horizon's patents through a manufactured crisis, planning to remove her as CEO within 6 months. When she confronted him with this evidence, Blackwood didn't even deny it. That's business, sweetie. You should be grateful a girl from the ghetto got this far. Now take the deal before I reconsider. The cabin pressure seemed to drop. Time slowed. 20 years of rage condensed into one perfect moment of clarity. The sound of palm meeting cheek echoed through the luxurious cabin. Everything froze. Blackwood's head snapped sideways, his expression transforming from smugness to shock. A thin trickle of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth where his tooth had cut into his inner lip. Jasmine hadn't planned to slap him. Physical violence had never been her style. But something in his condescending tone, the casual racism wrapped in business jargon, the absolute certainty that he could steal her life's work without consequences, it had triggered something primal. Her palm stung. The flight attendant gasped. Malik half rose from his seat across the aisle, eyes wide with both admiration and horror. For 3 heartbeats, absolute silence filled the cabin. Then Blackwood touched his cheek, examined the blood on his fingertips, and laughed. Not a genuine laugh, this was the cold chuckle of a predator who'd confirmed his target was worth pursuing. You have no idea what you've just done, he said softly. 2 security personnel Blackwood had brought aboard moved toward Jasmine. Their hands hovered near concealed weapons. Back off, Malik commanded, positioning himself between them and Jasmine. At 6'4" with shoulders like a linebacker, his presence gave them pause. This meeting is over, Jasmine stated, her voice surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. My pilot will land at the nearest airport. You can arrange your own transportation to San Francisco. Blackwood dabbed his lip with a monogrammed handkerchief. You think this ends with me leaving your little toy plane? You naive child. Do you know who I am? Who I know? A racist old man terrified of the future, Jasmine replied. Get off my jet. His eyes narrowed. When I'm finished, you'll wish you'd never learned to read, let alone started a company. You'll be nothing. Less than nothing. Are you threatening me? Promising you, he corrected. Consider it education. Something your kind supposedly values. The pilot announced their descent toward Oakland International. Blackwood gathered his papers unhurriedly, straightened his tie, and signaled to his security team. The technology is impressive, he said, as if the confrontation had never occurred. Shame about the management. He paused at the cabin door after landing. You'll regret this. And regret won't even begin to cover it. After Blackwood deplaned, Jasmine collapsed into her seat, shaking. Holy shit, Malik whispered. You slapped Thomas Blackwood. He was going to steal everything anyway, she said, showing him the acquisition memo. Malik scanned it, his expression darkening. This is a detailed plan to create a crisis, devalue our stock, and force a sale. Exactly. The partnership was never real. We need to call an emergency board meeting, Malik said. And get our legal team on this immediately. The flight to San Francisco took only 15 minutes. By the time they landed, #BlackwoodSlapped was already trending on social media, though no one yet knew who had done it or why. By midnight, Jasmine sat in a conference room with her top executives and legal counsel. The atmosphere was tense as her lawyers outlined potential consequences. Assault charges are possible, said Amara Okafor, Horizon's chief counsel. But more concerning is what his media connections might do with this. Blackwood owns stakes in 3 major news networks and countless online publications. He was planning to steal our company, Jasmine argued, pushing the acquisition memo across the table. Amara studied it. This helps explain motive, but doesn't justify physical assault in legal terms. And it's his word against yours regarding any racist comments. What about the jet security cameras? Asked Malik. Already checked, Amara replied. The system mysteriously malfunctioned during your meeting. No footage. Jasmine felt cold dread settling in her stomach. That's not possible unless someone hacked our system. Exactly, Amara said meaningfully. Someone with resources just demonstrated they can access your supposedly unhackable security system. Think about the implications. As the meeting continued past 2 a.m., Jasmine's phone exploded with notifications. Initial reports were emerging, all citing anonymous sources close to the incident. None mentioned Blackwood's racist remarks or acquisition plans. Instead, they described an unprovoked attack by an unstable executive unable to handle the pressures of leadership. Jasmine turned off her phone and looked at her team, people who had believed in her vision, who had worked alongside her to build something meaningful. I need to know right now, who's with me for what's coming? Most nodded immediately. A few looked away. Good, she said. Because war is coming. She had no idea how right she was. Dawn brought digital Armageddon. Jasmine woke to her phone vibrating off the nightstand, hundreds of notifications flooding in. Blurry-eyed, she opened the first news alert and felt her stomach drop. Black female CEO attacks industry veteran in drunken rage, screamed the headline from a major business publication. The article quoted multiple witnesses, claiming Jasmine had been drinking heavily and made racial slurs against Blackwood before physically assaulting him. A financial news channel was running the story on repeat. Questions about mental stability surround tech entrepreneur Jasmine Williams after violent outburst. Another publication had somehow obtained Jasmine's college photos, including one at a costume party deliberately shown out of context to suggest racist behavior on her part, a complete inversion of reality. Horizon stock had plummeted 32% before markets even officially opened. Trading would likely be halted due to volatility. It's a coordinated attack, Malik said when he arrived at her hotel suite, having barely slept himself. They were ready for this. Almost like they wanted you to slap him. Jasmine's phone rang, the board chairman requesting an emergency meeting in 2 hours. 3 major investors had already called demanding explanations. Client emails were pouring in, many pausing contracts pending resolution of leadership concerns. Social media had become a cesspool. #CrazyBossBitch was trending nationwide, with thousands of accounts, many appearing suspiciously new, sharing increasingly outlandish stories about her supposed instability and racism. They're painting me as both an angry black woman and a racist simultaneously, Jasmine noted with bitter irony. Impressive mental gymnastics. By noon, doctored photos appeared showing Jasmine in compromising positions. An hour later, a crudely edited audio clip circulated of someone with a voice similar to hers making threatening statements. How are they producing these so quickly, she wondered aloud. Malik's expression was grim. They've been preparing this. Remember that acquisition memo? This was always the plan, they just adjusted the timeline after you slapped him. The real blow came at 3:17 p.m. Horizon's head of cybersecurity burst into Jasmine's temporary command center at the hotel. Our servers have been compromised, he announced, face ashen. Someone accessed your complete email history overnight. They have everything, internal communications, client information, personal messages. Jasmine felt the floor tilt. That's not possible. Our security was bypassed using our own backdoor protocols. Only someone with internal knowledge could have done this. The implications were clear, Blackwood had help from inside Horizon. By evening, Jasmine's home address had been leaked online. A small group of protesters gathered outside, holding signs with her face crossed out. Security footage showed someone attempting to break in before being scared off by the alarm. Her mother called in tears. Someone just phoned me calling you horrible names and threatening me. What's happening, baby? Through it all, Malik remained steadfast. While other executives made themselves scarce or publicly distanced themselves with carefully worded statements, he stood literally and figuratively at her side during press confrontations. Mr. Johnson, as COO, do you condone physical violence from your CEO? Shouted one reporter outside their hotel. I condone standing up to bullying, racism, and corporate piracy, he responded firmly. Which is what Thomas Blackwood was attempting. Their exchange was notably absent from news coverage. Late that night, as Jasmine scrolled through the devastation of her reputation across all media platforms, a text arrived from an unknown number. First day down. It gets worse. You can end this by resigning and selling to Blackwood. Otherwise, everything burns. Your choice. She showed Malik, who immediately began trying to trace the sender. They're using sophisticated encryption, he reported after consulting with their security team. But the message originated from inside Blackwood Industries headquarters. Jasmine stared out the window at San Francisco's glittering skyline. In 24 hours, she'd gone from respected CEO to public villain. Her company was hemorrhaging value. Her privacy had been violated. Her family threatened. All because she refused to let a powerful white man steal what she had built. They think this will break me, she told Malik. They have no idea who they're dealing with. Little did she know that the attack had barely begun. Have you ever watched someone's life unravel thread by thread until nothing remains but the bare truth of who they really are? How would you react if everything you built was systematically destroyed because you dared to stand up against racism and corporate theft? Comment number 1 if you believe Jasmine was right to slap Blackwood after his racist remarks, or number 2 if you think she should have found another way to handle it. Like this video if you've ever witnessed discrimination in the workplace, and subscribe to see how Jasmine fights back against seemingly impossible odds. But first, let's see how the isolation and betrayal deepened around her. 3 days after the slap that shook Silicon Valley, Jasmine sat alone in a conference room as 8 board members filed in, none meeting her eyes. The emergency board meeting had been called to address leadership concerns. Translation: decide her fate. Board Chairman Franklin Pierce, a 67-year-old venture capitalist who had initially championed Jasmine, now kept a careful distance as he called the meeting to order. Given recent events and the company's precarious position, we need to discuss immediate leadership adjustments, he began, voice clinically detached. Through the glass walls, Jasmine could see employees huddled in groups, watching. Some with concern, others with barely concealed excitement at the drama. The company she'd built from nothing was fracturing before her eyes. That morning, 3 senior executives had submitted resignations, citing differences in leadership philosophy. Their departures triggered another stock plunge. Horizon had lost 45% of its market value in 3 days. The facts are straightforward, continued Pierce. Ms. Williams physically assaulted Thomas Blackwood during a business meeting. Regardless of provocation, this behavior has significantly damaged Horizon's reputation and financial standing. What about Blackwood's plan to steal our technology? Jasmine countered, sliding copies of the acquisition memo across the table. This proves his intentions were predatory from the start. Board member Victoria Zhang examined the document. This could be interpreted multiple ways. Standard acquisition language. There's nothing standard about planning to manufacture a crisis to devalue our company, Jasmine interrupted. Anthony Parker, Horizon's chief financial officer, cleared his throat. A recent hire from a major consulting firm, Anthony had always kept a professional distance from Jasmine. With respect, he said, we only have your word that Mr. Blackwood made racist comments. The memo doesn't prove that. Are you calling me a liar? Jasmine asked quietly. The room tensed. Anthony adjusted his tie. I'm saying emotions clearly ran high, and perceptions can be subjective. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Another major client had publicly terminated their contract, citing leadership instability. Outside the conference room, staff scrambled as reporters gathered in the lobby. Horizon's head of PR had resigned that morning, leaving the communications team rudderless. Chairman Pierce sighed heavily. We've received a letter from Blackwood's attorneys. They're suing for assault and defamation, seeking $50 million in damages. The room fell silent. Additionally, Pierce continued, they've filed for a temporary restraining order preventing Jasmine from making further statements about Mr. Blackwood or the incident. Malik, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. This is a coordinated attack to silence Jasmine and devalue Horizon. Exactly as outlined in that memo you're all dismissing. Conspiracy theories won't help us navigate this crisis, Anthony responded. We need pragmatic solutions. Like what? Jasmine challenged. Anthony straightened. Temporary leadership change. A cooling-off period while this resolves. Several board members nodded in agreement. You want me to step down, Jasmine stated flatly. Temporarily, Anthony emphasized. For the company's welfare. Jasmine stood slowly, keenly aware of eyes watching through glass walls. I built this company from nothing. I've navigated sexism, racism, and constant doubts about my abilities. Now you want me to abandon ship because a powerful white man is upset I wouldn't let him steal my life's work. This isn't about race, Anthony objected. It's entirely about race, Jasmine countered. If I were a white man who stood up to corporate theft, would we even be having this conversation? Uncomfortable silence followed. Chairman Pierce cleared his throat. Let's take a 15-minute recess before voting. As the room emptied, Jasmine headed to her office to collect her thoughts. Passing the break room, she overheard Anthony speaking in hushed tones. She's playing the race card to distract from her behavior, he was saying to another executive. Classic deflection. Jasmine froze, then silently backed away, heart pounding. She'd suspected Anthony wasn't fully loyal, but hearing his dismissal of her lived experience hit like a physical blow. Back in her office, she found Malik waiting. Something's off with Anthony, she said, recounting what she'd overheard. Malik nodded grimly. I had him investigated after he pushed so hard for the Blackwood partnership. He previously worked for a subsidiary of Blackwood Industries. That connection wasn't on his resume. Why are we just learning this now? The investigator just confirmed it. But there's more. Malik lowered his voice. Anthony had dinner with Blackwood last night. The betrayal stung worse than any headline. He's been Blackwood's plant all along. When the board reconvened, Jasmine watched them with new awareness. How many others had divided loyalties? The vote was 7-2 for temporary removal, only Malik and one other member dissenting. This takes effect immediately, Chairman Pierce announced, avoiding her gaze. Anthony Parker will serve as interim CEO. Anthony had the decency to look uncomfortable as Jasmine gathered her things. Security waited to escort her out, standard protocol for removed executives, but a humiliation nonetheless. As she left the building she designed, reporters shouted questions. Did you make racist comments before attacking Blackwood? Is it true you've had prior violent incidents? Are you checking into rehab for anger management? Jasmine maintained dignity, saying nothing as Malik helped her into a waiting car. At home, more reporters lurked outside her building. Inside, her apartment phone rang constantly with calls from unknown numbers. Her email contained hundreds of hate messages, some threatening violence. That night, as rain lashed against her windows, Jasmine felt herself sinking into despair. Her mother called, voice trembling as she described reporters harassing her at work. Former classmates were giving interviews about Jasmine's supposed history of volatility, complete fabrications from people she barely remembered. Maybe I should just quit, she whispered to Malik during their nightly strategy call. They're destroying my mother, my reputation, everything I've built. That's exactly what Blackwood wants, Malik reminded her. For you to break. After hanging up, Jasmine sat in darkness, questioning every decision that had led to this moment. The isolation felt absolute. Then her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Denise Washington, a board member who had voted for her removal. Cautiously, Jasmine opened the door. I shouldn't be here, Denise said, glancing nervously down the hallway. But you need to know something. She handed Jasmine a folder containing documents about Blackwood Industries. He's done this before. Systematically targeted successful black-owned businesses, created crises, then acquired them at pennies on the dollar. Denise's voice shook. I voted against you today because he threatened my family. I'm sorry. After Denise left, Jasmine pored over the documents. They revealed a pattern spanning 15 years, Blackwood identifying minority-owned businesses with valuable technology, manufacturing controversies around their founders, then acquiring their assets at bargain prices. For the first time in days, purpose replaced despair. This wasn't just about saving her company anymore. It was about exposing a predator who had destroyed countless entrepreneurs simply because he believed their race made them vulnerable targets. Jasmine reached for her phone. Malik? I need you to come over. Bring your laptop. We're not giving up. We're fighting back. 10 days after the infamous slap, Jasmine Williams stood in her mother's modest kitchen in South Chicago, stirring instant coffee in a chipped mug. Her designer clothes had been replaced by sweatpants and a faded university t-shirt. Outside, rain pelted against windows in the same neighborhood she'd fought so hard to escape. Baby, eat something, her mother urged, pushing toast toward her. Jasmine tried to smile. I'm not hungry, Mom. The small television on the counter played yet another news segment about Horizon Solutions' leadership crisis. Anthony Parker's smooth corporate voice announced necessary restructuring as the company's stock hit an all-time low. What the broadcast didn't mention, Jasmine's personal bank accounts had been frozen due to a fraud investigation mysteriously initiated 3 days earlier. Her credit cards were declined everywhere. Her phone service had been cut off. Even her health insurance had been retroactively cancelled due to administrative error. She was using her mother's phone to communicate with Malik, who reported increasingly dire news. Blackwood Industries had announced interest in acquiring key assets from the struggling Horizon Solutions. They're offering 8 cents on the dollar, Malik had texted that morning. Board is considering it. 8 cents on the dollar. Her $200 million company reduced to $16 million overnight. The doorbell rang. Jasmine's mother peered through the curtains, then quickly stepped back. Reporters again, she whispered. Third time today. They'd found her here 2 days ago. Since then, neighbors had been approached for interviews about the troubled CEO's childhood. Someone had spray-painted, "crazy bitch," on the sidewalk overnight. Jasmine's mother had worked 30 years as a school administrator. Now she was taking sick days to avoid media harassment. I'm so sorry I brought this to your door, Jasmine said, fighting tears. Her mother squeezed her hand. You stood up to a bully. I raised you right. Jasmine's phone, a prepaid model purchased with cash, buzzed with a news alert. She opened it, then sat heavily at the kitchen table. Blackwood had filed his promised lawsuit, $50 million for assault, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The complaint included allegations that Jasmine had used racial slurs during their confrontation, a complete inversion of reality. More disturbing, former Horizon employees were giving interviews describing Jasmine as temperamental, irrational, and increasingly paranoid. People she'd mentored, promoted, celebrated, now turning against her for media attention or perhaps financial incentives. Jasmine closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. She hadn't slept properly in days. Every time she checked social media, new accusations appeared. When she tried responding early on, her words were twisted or simply ignored. The systematic dismantling of her life continued with terrifying efficiency. That afternoon, Malik arrived, looking nearly as exhausted as Jasmine felt. They sat at her mother's kitchen table, speaking in hushed tones while rain drummed against the roof. Anthony's called an all-hands meeting for tomorrow, he reported. Word is they're announcing formal acquisition talks with Blackwood. They've already begun transferring our intellectual property. Can they do that without board approval? They got it last night. Emergency session. I was conveniently not informed until afterward. Jasmine pressed her palms against her eyes. This can't be legal. It's technically within bylaws during a company emergency. Anthony's been building his case for weeks, probably months. Every decision, every meeting has been documented to paint you as unstable and the company as failing under your leadership. And Blackwood swoops in as savior. Jasmine laughed bitterly. Perfect narrative. There's more, Malik said, his expression darkening. HR is preparing a report alleging pattern of racial discrimination against white employees under your leadership. That's absurd. Half our executive team is white. Doesn't matter. They found 3 former employees willing to claim you favored black staff. It's completely fabricated, but it makes the perfect counter-narrative to my claims about Blackwood's racism, Jasmine finished. Clever. They sat in silence, rain pattering against windows like tiny fists demanding attention. Maybe we should accept reality, Jasmine finally whispered. They've won. Completely. My reputation is destroyed. The company is gone. My finances are in ruins. Even my mother is suffering. Malik started to object, but Jasmine continued, what's left to fight for? Blackwood has unlimited resources. He owns media outlets, has political connections, can outlast us in court for decades. For the first time since she'd known him, Malik seemed without answers. As evening fell, Jasmine sat alone in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by faded academic awards and sports trophies. Everything she'd built afterward was being systematically erased. Her prepaid phone rang, unknown number. Hello. Ms. Williams? This is Harold Freeman. We served together on the Tech Equity Council last year. She vaguely remembered him, older black man, retired judge, now on several corporate boards. I'm calling because what's happening to you isn't right, he continued. And you need to know you're not the first. I've seen Blackwood's pattern, she said. Targeting minority-owned businesses. It's more organized than you realize. I've been quietly tracking his activities for years. He's destroyed 17 companies founded by black entrepreneurs, 9 by Latino founders, 12 by women of various backgrounds. Always the same playbook: create crisis, devalue, acquire, discard founders. Jasmine felt cold anger replacing despair. Why hasn't this been exposed? Money. Power. He buys silence with settlements that include aggressive NDAs. Those who resist find themselves destroyed professionally, financially, sometimes personally. Like me. Exactly like you. But you did something none of the others did. What's that? You slapped him in front of witnesses. Judge Freeman's voice held grim satisfaction. His ego can't let that stand. He's overreaching, getting sloppy in his revenge. And that creates opportunity. For the first time in days, Jasmine felt a flicker of hope. I'm listening. I can't discuss more on this line. Meet me tomorrow at the public library on 43rd Street. 10 a.m. reference section. After hanging up, Jasmine stared at the ceiling, mind racing. This wasn't just about saving her company anymore. It was about exposing a predator who had destroyed dozens of entrepreneurs simply because their race or gender made them seem like vulnerable targets. She thought about all those founders who had been silenced, their innovations stolen, their dreams crushed under Blackwood's expensive shoe. If she gave up now, she wouldn't just be losing her company. She'd be betraying everyone who came before her, and everyone who might come after. Jasmine reached for her phone to text Malik, meeting someone tomorrow who might help. Don't give up yet. For the first time in days, she slept without nightmares. The Chicago Public Library on 43rd Street smelled of old books and new possibilities. Jasmine navigated through metal detectors, past security guards who glanced at her without recognition. Her baseball cap and plain clothes, a far cry from her usual executive attire, provided welcome anonymity. Judge Harold Freeman waited in the reference section, bow-tied and dignified despite his 80 years. He nodded toward a private study room where they could speak without being overheard. I've brought someone you should meet, he said once the door closed. A young woman with bright eyes and a determined expression extended her hand. Zoe Taylor. I was an intern at Horizon until last month. Jasmine vaguely recalled her, computer science prodigy, quiet but brilliant. Zoe came to me after your removal, Freeman explained. She witnessed concerning activities but didn't know who to trust. Zoe opened her laptop. I was assigned to Anthony Parker's team 3 months ago. I noticed him accessing servers outside his clearance level. When I reported it to IT security, they told me it was authorized. She pulled up a series of screenshots showing login timestamps. After your confrontation with Blackwood, I started logging everything. Anthony accessed your private emails at 2:13 a.m. the night of the slap. He downloaded your entire communication history before the hack was officially discovered. Jasmine felt her pulse quicken. You have proof. Better than proof. I cloned his access pathway. I can still monitor his activities using credentials he doesn't know exist. For the first time in nearly 2 weeks, Jasmine smiled, a predator's smile. Show me everything. For the next hour, Zoe revealed damning evidence, communications between Anthony and Blackwood dating back 6 months before Anthony joined Horizon, detailed plans to systematically undermine Jasmine's leadership, a timeline for creating corporate crisis. They've been planning this for almost a year, Jasmine realized. Anthony was planted specifically to facilitate the takeover. Judge Freeman nodded gravely. Classic corporate raiding with a racist twist. Blackwood specifically targets successful minority entrepreneurs he believes will have fewer resources to fight back. But why me specifically? Your AI security technology threatens his defense contracts. Rather than compete fairly, he eliminates the competition by eliminating its creators. Zoe pulled up another file. There's more. Remember the jet incident? You mentioned security cameras malfunctioning. They claimed no footage existed. That's a lie. Zoe's fingers flew across the keyboard. The system backs up to a secure cloud server automatically. Anthony deleted the primary footage, but didn't know about the redundancy protocol you implemented last year. She turned the screen toward Jasmine. There it was, crystal clear video showing the entire confrontation, including Blackwood's racist remarks and his explicit threat to steal her company. Jasmine felt lightheaded. This changes everything. Not if nobody sees it, Freeman cautioned. Blackwood controls enough media outlets to bury this, and he has judges in his pocket who'll issue injunctions against its release. Then we need to be strategic, Jasmine said, mind racing. Zoe, can you access communications between Anthony and others inside Horizon? Already done. She pulled up another screen. 5 executives are actively colluding with him. 2 board members as well, besides those he's intimidated into compliance. What about external communications? Between Blackwood and other companies? Zoe hesitated. That's trickier. I can't access Blackwood Industries servers directly. But I know someone who might, Jasmine said, reaching for her phone. Within an hour, Malik arrived, bringing news that both concerned and energized their growing resistance. Anthony's accelerated the acquisition timeline, he reported. Blackwood is making a formal offer tomorrow, 12 cents on the dollar now, up from 8. They're portraying it as a generous rescue of a failing company. We need to move quickly, Freeman said. I've contacted others Blackwood has targeted over the years. Many are still bound by NDAs, but they're willing to share information anonymously. By late afternoon, their impromptu war room had expanded to include Amara Okafor, Horizon's chief counsel who had quietly maintained contact with Jasmine, 2 former employees of companies Blackwood had previously acquired and gutted, and Sofia Rodriguez, an investigative journalist known for exposing corporate misconduct. I've been trying to nail Blackwood for years, Sofia explained, examining their evidence. But victims always settle, sources disappear, and evidence vanishes before publication. Not this time, Jasmine promised. They worked through the night, connecting patterns across 15 years of predatory acquisitions. Blackwood had specifically targeted companies founded by black entrepreneurs at a rate 8 times higher than statistical probability would suggest. This isn't opportunistic business, Amara observed. It's a systematic campaign against black success in technology. By dawn, they had outlined a counter-strategy: gather irrefutable evidence, identify a whistleblower inside Blackwood Industries, build a coalition of former victims, and prepare multiple channels for releasing information simultaneously to prevent suppression. Zoe, monitoring Anthony's communications, reported a disturbing development: they're wiping Horizon's servers tonight, creating backups of the technology then deleting originals to prevent recovery. Can you stop it? Jasmine asked. Better. I can create my own backups first and leave evidence of their unauthorized access. As morning light streamed through library windows, Jasmine faced her unlikely alliance. What we're doing carries significant risk. Blackwood has destroyed people for less. Anyone who wants to walk away should do so now. No one moved. Then let's get to work. Over the next 3 days, operating from a series of temporary locations to avoid detection, their resistance movement expanded and solidified. Sofia published the first carefully crafted article questioning the narrative around the slap. It didn't directly accuse Blackwood but raised enough questions to create public doubt. Social media response was initially skeptical. After years of conditioning to see black women as angry and irrational, many dismissed these new perspectives. But seeds of doubt had been planted. Meanwhile, Judge Freeman activated his extensive network, identifying a potential whistleblower inside Blackwood Industries, a vice president who had expressed private concerns about Blackwood's acquisition practices. She's willing to talk but needs guarantees of protection, Freeman reported. Through Zoe's backdoor access, they monitored Anthony's growing panic as their counteroffensive gained momentum. He increased security at Horizon headquarters and accelerated the acquisition timeline. We need the original security footage from the jet, Jasmine decided. It's the linchpin. Without it, everything else could be dismissed as circumstantial. Problem is, Anthony secured the backup server access, Zoe explained. We'd need physical access to Horizon's main security hub. Malik volunteered immediately. I still have credentials. I can get in. It's too dangerous, Jasmine objected. They're watching for you specifically. Which is why I won't go alone. That night, in an operation that felt more spy thriller than corporate dispute, Malik and Amara entered Horizon headquarters during shift change. Using security protocols Jasmine had created but Anthony didn't fully understand, they retrieved the backup footage and escaped undetected. When they returned to their temporary base, a vacant office space owned by one of Freeman's associates, Jasmine watched the unedited footage with tears in her eyes. Every racist comment, every threat, every moment of Blackwood's true character was captured in high definition. "This is what they've been desperate to hide," Sophia whispered, already planning her exposé. "And this is what will bring him down," Jasmine replied, newfound determination hardening her voice. For the first time since the slap, she felt not just hope but certainty. Blackwood had made a critical error in his arrogance. He had chosen a victim who refused to be victimized, who had the skills, connections, and courage to fight back. As their alliance strengthened and evidence mounted, Jasmine recognized the turning point had arrived. The question was no longer whether she could save herself and her company, but how much of Blackwood's empire would remain when she was finished. The hunter had become the hunted. Secure communications are essential, Jasmine explained to her growing alliance, now gathered in the basement of Judge Freeman's South Side home. Everything we say or write must be encrypted. Over the past week, their resistance had evolved from desperate defense to coordinated counterattack. Using her expertise in security systems, Jasmine created a proprietary communication network that bypassed conventional channels Blackwood might monitor. "We need absolute compartmentalization," she continued. "No one knows everything except this core team. If someone is compromised, they can only reveal their piece of the puzzle." Her inner circle now included Malik, Zoe, Judge Freeman, Amara, Sophia, and 3 former victims of Blackwood's predatory tactics who had broken their NDAs to join the fight. On a digital whiteboard, Jasmine mapped their emerging strategy. "We've identified 3 vulnerabilities in Blackwood's operation." She pointed to the first node. Financial irregularities. Judge Freeman's contacts have uncovered offshore accounts used to pay people who helped destroy targeted companies. "We're tracking money flows to prove coordination." The second node, pattern of discrimination. "We've documented 27 cases where Blackwood specifically targeted minority-owned businesses using identical tactics. This establishes intent and method." And finally, internal whistleblowers. "We've confirmed 2 Blackwood executives willing to testify about explicit directives to target companies based on founders' race." Sophia, who had published 3 articles questioning the Blackwood narrative, reported growing public interest. "My first piece got 50,000 views. The latest hit 2 million. People are asking questions. The monolithic narrative is cracking." Initial public skepticism had begun shifting after Sophia released carefully selected clips from the jet footage. Enough to contradict Blackwood's claims without revealing their full evidence. "We're trending in 15 states, Zoe reported, monitoring social media reactions. #Truth Behind the Slap is gaining traction, especially among tech communities and civil rights groups." For Jasmine, watching public sentiment shift felt like witnessing dawn after endless night. The hashtag she'd created, #IStandWithJasmine, had been used over 300,000 times in 24 hours. But significant challenges remained. Anthony had accelerated Horizon's asset transfer, moving proprietary technology to Blackwood-controlled servers. The acquisition announcement was scheduled for the following week, with regulatory approval fast-tracked through Blackwood's political connections. "We need more than public opinion," Amara cautioned. "We need legal intervention before the acquisition completes." Judge Freeman nodded gravely. "My contacts report Blackwood has judges in 3 jurisdictions ready to issue injunctions against any evidence we release. He's prepared for conventional legal challenges." "Then we go unconventional," Jasmine decided. Their plan crystallized over the next 48 hours, simultaneous release of evidence through multiple channels, formal complaints to regulatory agencies documenting racial discrimination, and direct confrontation at the acquisition announcement. Each team member took responsibility for critical components. Zoe continued monitoring Anthony's communications while extracting evidence. Malik coordinated with former Horizon employees still loyal to Jasmine. Amara prepared legal filings. Sophia crafted the public narrative. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Their potential whistleblower inside Blackwood Industries, Vice President Diane Mercer, made contact through Judge Freeman's secure channel. Blackwood is destroying evidence, she reported. Internal servers are being wiped tonight. If you want documentation of his discriminatory practices, it has to happen now. This accelerated their timeline dramatically. Within hours, using access credentials provided by Mercer, Zoe infiltrated Blackwood's private servers. "I'm in," she announced at 2:17 a.m., fingers flying across her keyboard. "But security protocols are detecting my presence. We have minutes, not hours." The team watched in tense silence as she extracted gigabytes of internal communications, financial records, and strategy documents. "Got it," she finally said, disconnecting as security countermeasures activated. Everything from the past 5 years. The data revealed Blackwood's operation in shocking detail, explicit directives to target vulnerable founders with minimal support networks, detailed assessments of companies based partly on founders' racial background, and internal communications using derogatory language to describe minority entrepreneurs. Most damning was a presentation titled Acquisition Strategy 2025, listing Horizon Solutions among 14 targeted companies, 13 founded by minorities, 1 by a woman. "This is beyond corporate rating," Judge Freeman said, reviewing the evidence. "This is systematic discrimination designed to prevent minority entrepreneurs from competing in high-value sectors." Armed with irrefutable evidence, they launched the first phase of their counterattack. Sophia published a comprehensive exposé detailing Blackwood's pattern of targeting minority-owned businesses. Simultaneously, Amara filed complaints with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Public reaction was immediate and fierce. #Blackwood discrimination trended nationwide. Former victims, emboldened by mounting evidence, began speaking publicly. 3 major Blackwood investors announced reviews of their relationship with the company. Blackwood's response came swiftly and predictably: blanket denials, threats of defamation lawsuits, and allegations that evidence had been fabricated. More ominously, Jasmine's mother reported men watching her house, following her to work, photographing visitors. "He's getting desperate," Malik observed. "That's when predators are most dangerous." Indeed, that night brought escalation. Anthony confronted Malik at his apartment, accompanied by Horizon's head of security. "We know what you're doing," Anthony said. "This can still end quietly. Tell Jasmine to accept reality before people get hurt." Malik recorded the entire encounter, adding witness intimidation to their growing evidence file. With acquisition day approaching, Jasmine implemented the final phase of their strategy. Using Zoe's backdoor access, they identified everyone complicit in Anthony's conspiracy. Some had been coerced, others willingly participated. Each received personalized evidence of their involvement and one chance for redemption: cooperate with Jasmine's team or face legal consequences. 3 executives immediately reached out, offering testimony about Anthony's instructions to undermine Jasmine's leadership. The night before the acquisition announcement, Jasmine couldn't sleep. After weeks of operating from safe houses, using burner phones, and looking over her shoulder, tomorrow would bring either vindication or complete defeat. "Are you ready?" Malik asked during their final planning call. "I've been ready since he called me a girl from the ghetto," Jasmine replied. In her temporary bedroom, she laid out her outfit for tomorrow's confrontation, not the casual clothes of hiding, but the armor of a CEO, a precisely tailored suit, subtle makeup, understated jewelry. After weeks of being portrayed as unstable and unprofessional, her appearance would project exactly the opposite. She reviewed their evidence one final time, each document, recording, and testimony cataloged and backed up in multiple secure locations. Even if Blackwood somehow stopped her tomorrow, the truth would still emerge. Dawn broke with news that Blackwood Industries stock had dropped 12% in overseas trading. Rumors of regulatory investigation had spooked investors. Blackwood's board called an emergency meeting before the acquisition announcement. "He's feeling the pressure," Judge Freeman reported. "Sources say he's becoming erratic, demanding absolute loyalty, threatening anyone who questions him." Jasmine nodded calmly. Classic cornered predator. At precisely 9 a.m., she stepped out of anonymity and into the morning sunlight. For the first time in weeks, she moved without disguise or fear. Her team flanked her like an honor guard. Malik, Amara, Judge Freeman, Sophia, and Zoe. Together they walked toward Blackwood Tower, where in 1 hour, Thomas Blackwood planned to announce his acquisition of Horizon Solutions. Instead, he would face the woman he had underestimated, the woman who refused to become another silent victim. "Remember," Jasmine told her team as they approached the gleaming skyscraper, "this isn't just about me or Horizon anymore. This is for everyone he's ever silenced." The security guards at the lobby entrance recognized her immediately. One reached for his radio, eyes wide with surprise. Jasmine smiled. "Please inform Mr. Blackwood that Jasmine Williams is here. He's expecting me." She wasn't on the approved visitor list, of course. But creating a scene by denying entry to the very CEO whose company was being acquired today would raise too many questions. After hurried consultations, they were escorted to the executive elevator. "Nervous?" Malik whispered as they ascended toward the penthouse conference room. Jasmine touched her palm, remembering the slap that had started everything. "Not anymore." The penthouse conference room of Blackwood Tower offered panoramic views of Chicago's skyline, a calculated display of power for visitors. Television cameras were already positioned for the acquisition announcement scheduled in 40 minutes. Financial reporters mingled with executives, sipping coffee from bone china cups. Conversations halted when Jasmine entered with her team. For a moment, nobody moved or spoke, the collective shock of seeing a woman presumed professionally dead walking confidently toward the center of the room. Anthony Parker spotted her first, coffee cup freezing halfway to his lips. The blood drained from his face as he frantically scanned the room for security. "Ms. Williams," he stammered, recovering slightly. "This is a private event. You weren't invited." "I invited myself," Jasmine replied, voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Considering you're selling my company today, I thought I should be present." Several journalists turned, sensing a more interesting story than the scripted acquisition they'd expected to cover. "There's nothing to discuss," Anthony said, gesturing discreetly for security. "The board has approved the sale. Legal documents are signed." "Interesting," Jasmine replied. "I'd love to see those documents. Especially since I've just filed for emergency injunction in federal court, citing corporate espionage, racial discrimination, and witness tampering." Murmurs rippled through the assembled press. Phones emerged as reporters began recording. "These are baseless accusations," Anthony insisted, voice rising. "Ms. Williams was removed for erratic behavior after physically assaulting Mr. Blackwood." "About that assault," Jasmine said, nodding to Zoe who connected her laptop to the room's presentation system. "Let's review what actually happened." Before anyone could intervene, the unedited security footage from the jet began playing on the massive screen. Every person in the room watched as Thomas Blackwood called Jasmine, a girl from the ghetto, who should be grateful for his attention, explicitly threatened to steal her company, and made multiple racist remarks. When the clip ended with Jasmine's slap, the room remained silent for 3 heartbeats. Then everyone began speaking at once. Reporters furiously typed on phones. Executives whispered urgently. Security personnel looked to each other for direction. Anthony sputtered ineffectually, that's been doctored. It's fake. Federal forensic experts have already authenticated it, Amara stated calmly. Along with evidence that you, Mr. Parker, deliberately sabotaged Horizon Solutions on Mr. Blackwood's behalf. Zoe cued the next presentation, emails between Anthony and Blackwood dating back months before Anthony joined Horizon. "Where is Thomas Blackwood?" Jasmine asked, scanning the room. "I'm surprised he's missing his moment of triumph." Mr. Blackwood was delayed, a nervous executive offered. "He should arrive shortly for the announcement." "Perfect," Jasmine smiled. "That gives us time to review more evidence." For the next 20 minutes, she systematically dismantled the conspiracy against her. Financial records showing payments to crisis consultants who created false narratives about her. Documentation of Blackwood's pattern of targeting minority-owned businesses. Testimony from former victims. Reporters abandoned any pretense of neutrality, openly recording everything. This had transformed from acquisition announcement to breaking scandal. Anthony attempted to regain control. "Security, please remove these people immediately." The security chief hesitated, looking from the damning evidence on screen to Anthony's flushed face. "Sir, given what's being presented, I think." "I don't pay you to think." Anthony snapped. "Remove them now." The elevator doors opened, and Thomas Blackwood strode in, flanked by attorneys. He assessed the situation instantly, face hardening when he saw Jasmine. "What is this circus?" he demanded. "Truth and consequences," Jasmine replied simply. Blackwood turned to his security chief. "Why are these trespassers still here? Remove them immediately." "Before you do," Judge Freeman interjected, "you should know federal agents are currently executing search warrants at Blackwood Industries offices in 5 cities. Similar warrants are being served at Mr. Parker's residence." Anthony went pale. "That's impossible." "Quite possible," Amara corrected, "given the evidence of racketeering, discrimination, and conspiracy we've provided to multiple agencies." Blackwood maintained his composure better than Anthony, smoothly pivoting to crisis management. "These are serious but ultimately baseless allegations that will be addressed through proper legal channels. For now, we have a business transaction to complete." "That transaction is temporarily suspended," Jasmine informed him, holding up her phone displaying a judicial order. "Federal judge issued this 30 minutes ago." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Blackwood's face. He pulled his attorneys aside for hurried consultation. The room had become chaotic, reporters making calls, executives clustered in worried conversations, security personnel awaiting clear direction. Blackwood returned, attempting to project confidence. "This minor legal hurdle will be resolved quickly. The acquisition proceeds as planned." "You might want to check with your board first," Sophia suggested, gesturing toward her phone. "My exposé just published. Your stock has dropped 17% in the last hour. Trading may be halted soon." True panic finally registered on Blackwood's face. He barked orders at subordinates to contact board members, check stock prices, prepare statements. Jasmine approached him directly, stopping just outside his personal space. Everyone nearby fell silent, witnessing the confrontation. "You thought I would be easy to destroy," she said quietly. "A black woman without the connections or resources to fight back. Just another minority entrepreneur you could crush and discard." "I don't know what you're talking about," Blackwood replied coldly. "You told me I'd regret slapping you. But here's what you never understood, Thomas. That slap wasn't just about your racism or your attempt to steal my company. It was about every entrepreneur who looked like me that you've destroyed. Every dream you've crushed because you believed our skin color made us vulnerable targets." Journalists edged closer, recording every word. "Your delusions of persecution don't interest me," Blackwood said dismissively. "This pathetic publicity stunt changes nothing." His phone buzzed. He checked the screen, face tightening as he read a message from his board chairman. Jasmine smiled. "Feeling the ground shift beneath your feet? That's how all your victims felt. The difference is, I'm not falling. You are." Security personnel approached, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Blackwood, federal agents are in the lobby. They're asking for you specifically." Anthony, who had been frantically making calls, suddenly bolted for a side exit. 2 security guards intercepted him before he reached the door. The mood in the room had transformed completely. The powerful, untouchable Thomas Blackwood now appeared increasingly isolated as subordinates subtly distanced themselves. "This isn't over," Blackwood hissed, leaning close to Jasmine. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." "Actually, I do," Jasmine replied calmly. "That's why you're finished." Federal agents entered the conference room, led by a serious-looking woman who scanned the crowd before approaching Blackwood. "Thomas Blackwood. I'm Special Agent Diana Chen. We have a warrant to search these premises and to question you regarding allegations of corporate espionage, racial discrimination in business practices, witness tampering, and conspiracy." As Blackwood was escorted from his own press conference, reporters surrounded Jasmine, shouting questions. She raised her hands for quiet. "I'll make a brief statement. What you've witnessed today is the exposure of a systematic campaign to destroy minority-owned businesses through illegal and discriminatory practices. This isn't just about saving my company. It's about ensuring every entrepreneur has a fair chance to succeed, regardless of race, gender, or background." Camera flashes punctuated her words as she continued, "To every founder who has been silenced, intimidated, or destroyed by powerful interests who saw your race as a vulnerability, your stories matter. Your innovations matter. And justice is still possible." As the impromptu press conference concluded, Malik approached with breaking news. Horizon's board had called an emergency session, Anthony had been removed as interim CEO, and 3 board members had resigned. Outside Blackwood Tower, Jasmine paused to look up at the gleaming edifice built on the broken dreams of countless entrepreneurs. For the first time in weeks, she felt the weight lifting from her shoulders. The chess game wasn't completely over, legal battles would continue, reputations needed rebuilding, damage required repair. But the king had been cornered. The predator had become prey. Jasmine Williams had done what Thomas Blackwood thought impossible. A black woman from South Chicago had brought down one of the most powerful men in America, not despite her identity but empowered by the resilience it had taught her. The slap heard across Silicon Valley had become the fall heard around the business world. 3 weeks after the dramatic confrontation at Blackwood Tower, Jasmine Williams stood before Horizon Solutions' assembled employees. The company auditorium, silent and tense in recent months, now hummed with anticipation. "Thank you all for coming," she began, surveying faces both familiar and new. Some had stood by her throughout the crisis, others had distanced themselves, believing the narrative constructed against her. Some had actively participated in her removal. All watched her now with varying degrees of curiosity, admiration, or apprehension. "Today marks a new chapter for Horizon," she continued. "The board has unanimously voted to reinstate me as CEO, effective immediately." Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then building to a standing ovation led by Malik and those who had remained loyal. Even former skeptics joined, recognizing which way the corporate winds now blew. Jasmine raised her hand for quiet. "Before we move forward, we must acknowledge what happened. Our company was targeted because of who founded it. Because a black woman dared to innovate in spaces traditionally reserved for others. Because Blackwood Industries saw our diversity as vulnerability rather than strength." She paused, making eye contact with key figures in the audience. "Some of you stood firm during the crisis. Others believed false narratives about me. Some actively worked against this company's interests." Her gaze lingered briefly on executives who had collaborated with Anthony. "Today, I'm offering a clean slate. Not because I've forgotten, but because Horizon's mission matters more than individual grievances." The rehabilitation of Horizon Solutions had begun the moment federal investigations into Blackwood Industries were announced publicly. Major clients who had canceled contracts now sought to renew them. Investors who had distanced themselves returned with apologies and fresh capital. The stock price had recovered 57% of its losses. Anthony Parker faced multiple federal charges for corporate espionage, wire fraud, and conspiracy. 3 other executives who had actively participated in undermining Jasmine had resigned rather than face internal investigation. The board had been restructured, with Judge Freeman accepting a position as chairman. Thomas Blackwood himself remained free on bail but effectively neutered. The SEC had suspended trading of Blackwood Industries stock pending investigation. 5 separate class action lawsuits had been filed by shareholders. His board had placed him on administrative leave while distancing the company from his actions. Most significantly, 23 entrepreneurs previously targeted by Blackwood had formed a coalition, sharing evidence and testimony about his discriminatory practices. Federal prosecutors were building a RICO case against him personally. After the company meeting, Jasmine retreated to her restored office with Malik, Zoe, now officially Horizon's Chief Information Security Officer, and Amara. The Washington Post interview publishes tomorrow, Amara reported. They're featuring you alongside other minority entrepreneurs who faced similar discrimination. Congress called, Malik added. The House Committee on Financial Services wants you to testify about discriminatory practices in tech acquisitions. Jasmine nodded, the magnitude of their victory still sinking in. What had begun as personal survival had evolved into something much larger, a potential watershed moment for minority entrepreneurs facing systemic barriers. We've been approached about establishing a legal defense fund, Amara continued. To help founders facing similar situations who lack resources to fight back. Make it happen, Jasmine decided immediately. Use $10 million from my personal accounts. 6 months later, Jasmine adjusted her blazer before entering the congressional hearing room. Camera flashes greeted her as she took her seat at the witness table. The gallery was packed with journalists, industry representatives, and members of the public. Ms. Williams, began Congresswoman Patterson, thank you for appearing today. Your written testimony details disturbing patterns of discrimination against minority entrepreneurs. Could you elaborate on how these practices manifest in the technology sector specifically? For the next 3 hours, Jasmine provided methodical evidence of systemic barriers facing Black founders. She named specific companies, practices, and patterns while offering concrete policy recommendations. Meanwhile, across town, Thomas Blackwood sat with his attorneys as federal prosecutors outlined the 37-count indictment against him. The man who had once seemed untouchable now faced potential decades in prison. That evening, in her hotel room, Jasmine video-called her mother. You look tired, baby, her mother observed. Good tired, Jasmine replied. The committee seemed receptive. Real change might actually happen. I'm so proud of you. Not just for winning, but for how you won. You could have settled for personal vindication but chose to fight for everyone affected. After ending the call, Jasmine stood by the window overlooking the Capitol. Her phone buzzed with a news alert, Blackwood Industries announces restructuring, minority leadership initiative. She smiled. Corporate America was already adapting, recognizing that the landscape had permanently shifted. The Blackwood case had exposed not just one man's prejudice but an entire system designed to exclude voices like hers. 1 year to the day after the infamous slap, Jasmine Williams stood on stage at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Before her sat hundreds of entrepreneurs, mostly Black and brown faces rarely represented in such numbers at tech gatherings. The Equity and Innovation Coalition officially launches today, she announced, with $50 million in initial funding to provide legal, financial, and mentoring support to minority founders facing discriminatory practices. Beside her stood 24 successful entrepreneurs who had helped create the coalition. Behind them, a screen displayed the faces of founders whose businesses had been destroyed by predatory acquisition practices, Blackwood's victims and others. 1 year ago, I slapped a CEO who thought my race made me an easy target, Jasmine continued. That moment could have ended my career. Instead, it exposed a system of discrimination that has silenced too many innovative voices for too long. She raised her right hand, the same one that had delivered the slap heard across Silicon Valley. This hand once struck a blow against individual racism. Today, we strike a blow against systemic barriers. Every entrepreneur deserves equal opportunity to succeed or fail based on their ideas, not their identity. The applause was deafening. Later, in her office, Jasmine added a final item to her collection of framed mementos, the court document recording Thomas Blackwood's guilty plea to multiple federal charges. He would serve 7 years in prison and forfeit hundreds of millions in personal assets to a victim compensation fund. On her desk sat a small carved wooden plaque her mother had given her, bearing words from Maya Angelou: "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." Jasmine ran her fingers over the inscription, then glanced at her palm, the same palm that had struck Blackwood's face that fateful day on her jet. The sting had long since faded, but the impact continued to reverberate through boardrooms and venture capital firms across America. She had transformed a moment of justified rage into a movement for lasting change. The slap that was meant to destroy her had instead become the catalyst for her greatest achievement, not just personal success, but a pathway for others to follow. Jasmine's story teaches us that standing up against injustice often comes with severe consequences, but courage in the face of systemic racism can create lasting change. Her journey shows that prejudice in corporate America remains deeply entrenched, particularly for Black entrepreneurs who face unique barriers to success. When powerful interests use race as a weapon, the path to justice requires not just individual resilience but collective action. The story also reveals how quickly society rushes to believe negative narratives about Black professionals, especially women. Jasmine's experience highlights the importance of evidence, allies, and strategic thinking when confronting discrimination. Her ultimate triumph wasn't just personal vindication but systemic reform that lifted others. Perhaps most importantly, the story demonstrates that true change requires transforming momentary resistance into organized movements. Jasmine could have settled for personal justice, but instead created pathways for others facing similar discrimination. Her legacy became not just a successful company, but a more equitable playing field for all entrepreneurs regardless of race. What moments in your life have you witnessed discrimination that went unchallenged? Have you ever stood up against injustice like Jasmine, or wished you had the courage to do so? Comment below with your experiences or thoughts on how we can create more equitable workplaces. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help it reach others who need to hear it. Subscribe for more powerful stories that expose the realities many face daily. Share this video with someone who might be fighting their own battle against discrimination right now. Your support could be their turning point. Thank you for joining Jasmine's journey from that defining slap to creating lasting change. Remember, sometimes our most difficult moments become our greatest opportunities to transform not just our lives, but the world around us.